You're listening to The Higher Ed Marketer, the podcast for marketing professionals in higher education. Join us every week as we talk to the industry's greatest minds in student recruitment, donor relations, marketing trends, new technologies, and much more. If you're looking for conversations centered around where marketing in higher ed is going, this podcast is for you. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast. I'm Troy Singer, here with my good friend and co-host Bart Caylor. And today's topic is don't estimate the strategic power of your website. We talk to Kesha Boyce-Williams, who is the Senior Associate Vice Chancellor for Strategic Communications and Marketing at USC Upstate in South Carolina. With more than 2 decades of experience in marketing, digital storytelling, and rep strategy across higher ed, nonprofits, and cultural institutions, Kesha brings both vision and execution to her role.
It was so much fun to have Kesha on the podcast today. I think she's just such a dynamic person, and she's fun to listen to and really has a passion. And I really appreciate how she walked us through this major transformation of the institutional website. And for all transparency, we were a part of that. We helped her on some of the initial planning and audit and some of the other things. And she talks a little bit about that, but I wanted to be clear on that. But it was a shift that not only required the strong strategy, but also navigating that cross-campus collaboration. I sometimes call it, campus politics. You've got to be able to understand that and be smart, because at the end of the day, your website is your number one marketing tool that you have. And so you've got to be really clear about that. And so she does a great job explaining what she and her team did and how that really impacted the way that it was launched and the way that the success of it. So it's a great conversation. I'm glad to share this with everyone.
In addition to that explanation, what really strikes me is how on fire, how inspiring she is for her campus and for higher ed at this point in time. It'll come across and you'll see what I mean. Here is that conversation with Kesha Boyce-Williams. Kesha, we begin each conversation with our guests by asking them to share something interesting or surprising that you've learned recently that you think our listeners would appreciate.
So first, thank you for the opportunity to share in this podcast.
Of course.
And I'm excited being a guest. So I'm navigating 2 thoughts right now. The first one is how many ways higher education intersects our daily life. I want everyone listening to walk through your day and your relationships and consider how higher education intersects. I think this is particularly important at a time when the American public is considering the relevance and importance of American colleges, universities, large and small. So I did it this morning. My commute to work. I live in a small town and I commute to a city. That's urban planning. You learn that in a higher education institution. Intersecting highways and bridges built by engineers, considering the problem of growth and traffic, that's sociology. On my way to work, I find myself listening to a morning meditation by the late Dr. Maya Angelou. I found it on YouTube. YouTube was founded in 2005. One of the founders is an alum of the Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and the other 2 founders are alums of the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. The late Dr. Maya Angelou was a professor at Wake Forest University for more than 20 years. And I saw her speak because a college and university in Cleveland, Ohio, called Case Western Reserve University, invited the community to hear her. As I'm driving, I'm considering my own journey into higher education leadership. And it started with educational opportunities through cooperative extension at a local university in my county as an elementary student. It grew from there, from opportunities to study at 4 different colleges and universities before graduating from high school. Those opportunities led me to the blessing of studying at the best journalism school in the country. And the rest, as they say, is history. So I flipped your question because I think it was an opportunity for us to think differently about how important American universities and colleges are. So one of the interesting things I've learned lately is just staying connected to the American conversation about our relevance.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love that.
Yes, I didn't mean to step in front of you, Bart, but yeah, very needed. And if I didn't think I would get in trouble from Bart and you, I would say let's go down that path for our subject of the podcast. But
we might have
I'm going to
come back for that.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to stick with our original plan.
Right.
And our topic, reimagining the website as an enrollment tool. But Kesha, before that, I want to maybe set a foundation and would like to know if you would share with your role at USC Upstate, what were some of the early priorities when you first stepped into your leadership position?
Well, I had multiple priorities. When I interviewed, the institution was facing what many universities was facing. That was the need to increase enrollment. We're an undergraduate institution primarily. And so I knew that post-pandemic, we needed to find the way to draw and raise brand awareness for University of South Carolina Upstate. One of my first priorities, though, was really getting to know the team and understanding their challenges and their opportunities, and learning the executive leadership team and the cabinet, and meeting with them and learning about the needs of the institution. And the third priority was really looking at what our opportunities were to raise the brand awareness. However, it was presented with a unique opportunity because we had a new chancellor at USC Upstate, Dr. Benny L. Harris, who is the 5th chancellor of USC Upstate, and he reimagined his investiture event, which is common with new university presidents, to be a community engagement event, a brand awareness event. It included a 3-day event that included a gospel concert, opportunities for the governor to come to USC Upstate campus. And so at week 3 or 4 or whatever, early in my tenure here, I had the opportunity to bring a new level of awareness at USC Upstate for that unique moment in time. We received coverage on all the local media. So I'm winning in the brand awareness arena, and we received coverage in national. But to connect to the specific question, the website needed to be redesigned, and it had been an 8-year desire that had not been realized by the institution. So that was facing me when I came aboard, because it was directly related to enrollment marketing success.
Yeah, and I think it's too, based on everything you said about your chancellors coming in and things like that, it is a brand awareness play. Many times people see the first time they know about your school is when they log onto your website, and I think that's. A lot of times people don't realize that's your front door. It's the first impression, and you've only got a couple seconds to make that first impression. And so I also wanted to go back because you said something else that I want to highlight before I kind of get to this next part that I want to dig at a little bit. You said you spent some time with your team when you came on. Yes. I think trust is one of the most underestimated things that you can do as a leader, that you can do being with your team, with not only with your team, but also with the cabinet, with other leaders. You have to build that trust. And that's going to be we've been talking about it internally at Caylor Solutions, is that we really think trust is our currency. Everything else we do is just kind of extra. But
it's building relationships.
It is building trust.
It is building relationships so we can work together, because it is not my problem to fix the marketing and communications of the institution. It is our opportunity as an institution for everybody to work on this in conversation. It's me listening to you, understanding the things that have worked for you, have not worked for you, understanding where you see the institution going. It's the listening. And that didn't just start with me. Dr. Harris, when he came on board, even before I got hired, he had a whole reimagining Upstate listening tour where he was just listening to people throughout the institution, because that's leadership. Leadership is about listening, because any good CEO, executive, pastor, anyone, you need to listen to your people before you stand before them and tell them this is going to be our way forward.
Yeah, and I think I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think that whenever you look at a project, especially big projects like websites, that everybody feels like they've got a part on. And so you already talked about the fact that it had been kicked down the road for 8 years. And so what you came into, I think a lot of people think, well, just upgrade it. It's just a technical upgrade, right? Just update the software, make a couple changes, and be on with it. That's not what you thought. So talk about that. Talk about how you really helped the institution start thinking more strategic, and why did you choose to go that path?
What websites were in 1996 and what they needed to be in 2023 are two different things. Yeah. I have been managing websites for 18 years. I managed my first website in 2007 for a higher education institution. And in order to get the support that you need to leverage the content, to improve the content, to tell the stories of the alums that are being successful, the faculty and staff that are helping to engage the next generation of minds, you are going to have to sit down and find out what is working and what is not working. And so we were faced with a website that, while it was technically sound, it was outdated. It didn't engage the audiences in the way it needed to do in this current age. And it didn't support a user experience that was in line with today's standards. So the reason I know that is because I valued user experience and information architecture research. So for most websites have to engage the information technology department. So you really do it in partnership with them, but you also do it in partnership with the entire university, because everyone plays a part. It doesn't mean that the entire university designs the website, because try that and see how that goes. But it means that you engage them in understanding what the website needed to be. But you start with strategy, and then you engage a firm. Do not try to do this yourselves, because it is something that, if you want good results, you're going to have to make the investment. And I thought about this before I said it out loud, because oftentimes institutions, they say they don't have the budget to redesign the website, or they leave it to the IT department, and then they wonder why it takes 5 years to do it.
Right.
There are bright minds out there that are doing this and doing this well. Do the work of understanding that you need to do this in partnership with a firm.
Yeah, I think that's wise. And I think that you touched on a couple things there that, before we move on to the next question, Troy, I just wanted to kind of play out a little bit, because I think it's really important. You talked about you can't do it alone. And you've got to have strategy. But even before you have the strategy, you've got to have buy-in. You've got to bring everybody along, because one of the things, I've been doing websites for a very long time, and the ones that fail are the ones that people are like, I didn't know we had a new website. Nobody told me, or nobody asked my opinion. And it's important that you bring everybody along. But I'm going to give you a secret that I've been doing for the last 20 years on these things, is that you meet with everybody, you ask them why they love the institution and what's exciting about the brand, help them articulate why they love being there. Do not ask them what they want on their webpage, because as soon as you start asking, you become an order taker, and then you have to start fulfillment, all those different things. And sometimes those priorities are going to be different. And I certainly believe that, departments and schools and things like that need to have an area on their website that they can, put some things on. But the website has to be enrollment driven, especially for schools that are driven by enrollment. You've got to have an enrollment focus on that. Yeah. And you can't have everything on the homepage just because everybody wants something on the homepage.
And we struggled with that. That was a front page struggle, because our RFP said this was an enrollment marketing focused website. But there are other needs that needed to be met through the same redesign. And so that was definitely a struggle for us. And it's about listening and engaging the multiple stakeholders and audiences to understand what the purpose of the website is.
Right.
And that's what makes the work hard, because everybody wants to try to direct how the website is designed and function, and it just can't do that it has to have a focus.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really good point.
Kesha, would like to turn the topic to the strategy and the partnerships that you alluded to a little earlier. Now, many teams have the discussion of using their internal team versus using a trusted partner. And you already gave us your opinion on that, but would like for you to let us know, how did bringing in an outside perspective help shape your strategy overall?
A good firm will be current. They'll know how mobile display is working. They'll know what is the latest with how the tour is working. And they are fresh eyes. They don't have the emotional attachment to the website.
Right.
They can look at it and they can have an honest conversation with you about what is working, what is not working, and what industry best practices are for how your website should function. They know how to leverage analytics. Not that you don't also, but they can focus.
Yeah.
And they can give you the best attention you need to be able to improve your website. And we had the audacity to ask firms to redesign the website in less than a year. And I knew that was hard outside of the gate. But I believe in miracles, signs, and wonders. So that dream and hope was realized, but I knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah, it's a big project. I think a lot of people walk into it and realize that, it's HTML. I remember doing that when I was in middle school. Let's just go. Mm-hmm. And no, it's more than that, especially when you start thinking about industry expertise. I appreciate you brought that up because, I'll be honest with you, sometimes we walk into, and I'm speaking as Caylor Solutions instead of the host of the Higher Ed Marketer, sometimes we'll walk into schools where, we've had the agency in town that does the advertising, that does the car wash down the way. They did our website, and they wonder why it's not hitting the right level, because higher ed is a very specialized way. The marketing for higher ed is different than other things because you've got B2B, you've got B2C, you've got all kinds of constituents. There's a lot of different ways. It's a very long sales cycle. And so a lot of times it's a different way of doing it. And that has to be.
And it's constantly evolving.
Yes.
So you can't be a regular ad firm. Well, you can, but I think people who are focused on higher education marketing are well positioned to help be successful with website redesign because they understand the intricacies of the industry. So that is what I pursued. I wanted a firm with a track record of redesigning websites successfully for colleges and universities.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So how did you ensure that it wasn't just going to be a better looking website, but actually aligned with those enrollment goals and the user journeys? Because I think that's one thing too. People are like, oh, I'll put my beret on and I've got these really cool looks. But again, it goes back to the fact that is the end of the day to win an award for the website, or is it to actually enroll students? So talk about how you kind of navigated that it wasn't just better looking, but actually better functioning.
In focus groups to understand what our users needed. We looked at our analytics. We were strategic in understanding what our best marketing and communications messages were. And we strategically looked at all of that to pull it all together. How you start matters. So, engaging a cross-departmental team was important. Looking at the research first was important because one of the first things I did was I wanted an audit, fresh eyes on the website. Let's look at the data. Let's look at what is working, what needs to be improved based on a third party's evaluation of us. Simultaneously, we're working on the RFP so that we can have a clear direction on what are we trying to do.
Right.
What are we going to own that we are doing, and what are we going to accept that we can't do this go around? And then at the same time, you're having conversations with people so that you can get the buy-in, to get the support. Because one of the hardest things about a website redesign is not just the functionality, it's the content.
Right.
It's how are you telling your story? Why am I looking at the page of this department when it hasn't been updated in 8 years?
Exactly.
The students look different. The faculty look different. The research looks different. How are we re-engaging in that story? And the business of the university is to engage and teach brighter minds. So oftentimes faculty, they don't have the luxury of time to work on their content, even though they need to. And I understand that, but we have to have a conversation about how we meet in the middle so that we can all get there together. Because if you want to increase the enrollment of your particular academic program, then we're going to need to have a story about how someone has matriculated in their program and they've reached greater heights, to borrow from our marketing campaign, through studying what you shared with them.
Yeah.
And that's how we connect. Because people come to colleges and universities to aspire to be something better than what they are when they come to the door. You know, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an engineer, you want to be, on Broadway. Those portals happen through the doors of higher education. And you make some of your college decision is affordability because of the days and times we live in. But sometimes it is, how has this person been able to go through the same program and achieve their goals at this particular institution? It's the stories of the relationships. It's the stories of the education game. It's the stories of what access did this university give me. And that is beyond functionality.
Yeah.
So it all has to work together.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you're focusing so much on stories, because I think that's one of the things that's going to drive those really successful higher education website redesigns is the idea of storytelling, outcomes. There's a lot of things that are going to go into that. And I know that's a big part of your strategy. And so help me understand that as you are working on that strategy and as you're starting to kind of lay the groundwork for these new ways of doing storytelling, new ways of updating websites that have not been, pages that hadn't been updated in 8 years, when did you start to see that, okay, people are getting it? This is starting to happen. Were there any milestones or feedback or even just some of the results that as the new website came online that you're like, see, that's why we did this. That's why it's working.
We got internal feedback that people were having a better experience. And we got analytics that also showed that more people were coming to the site. Don't ask me for specific numbers because I can't.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's data.
The data was showing it. And I think people just felt better. There was just, this is better. We look more modern. We're more engagement. When the enrollment management side of the house is happy, it's a good time to be at work, because if they have the responsibility of bringing in more scholars, we have the responsibility of having the leads in university marketing communications. So we share that opportunity and responsibility together. So even though we had an aggressive timeline and we had a urgent need, I started to see the results because people felt better about the front of the house. We just resigned what the door looked like. You were able to get to information. And we're constantly trying to make it better through strategic leadership. And so it also needs to start at the top. This is not an IT project.
No.
This is not a Marcom project. Your leadership is best served by celebrating the website and the website redesign at the top level, realizing that it is a way that is probably your lead marketing tool.
It is.
So it really, and we benefited from that. Dr. Harris, we had support from the top at the beginning.
Yeah. And I want to underscore that, because that's one of the things too that, and it's not necessarily just the website. It could be your messaging campaign. It could be your branding. It could be your view book. It could be a number of things that you're trying to do, even to the point where I've talked to boards. I've been invited to speak in front of a board of trustees, and they're complaining about the fact that they're not seeing all the digital advertising that's being invested in. How is that even working? And I'm telling them, if you are seeing the ads that we're doing, it's not working because you're not the audience. You are not a 17-year-old Gen Z who's scrolling TikTok and Instagram and searching on YouTube for things. And if you're seeing all of our ads, then something's broken. And so that, I think, that has to come from leadership. You've got to have your president who is with you and walking that path with you, so that when you are making your board presentations, when you are talking to other people on campus, when you have those grumpy faculty who want to make sure that, why don't I have 87 pages about my program that I used to? Those are when you have to have that leadership backing, that you've got to have that vision coming from the top. And again, that goes back to the trust that we talked about earlier. That goes back to that, sowing those seeds early and building those relationships early, because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to what the success is what the health of the institution is. And so, yeah, I'm going to start preaching here in a second if we're not careful. So, but I love what you're saying about that, because it's so true. And so when I know that a lot of people are listening to this and they're like, okay, I agree. Everything Kesha's saying, this is awesome. I love what Bart's saying. I think this is really good. What are things that you would tell people that are struggling right now? They're like, yeah, I have my website's going on 8 years as well. I totally get what she was saying. What are some first pieces of advice that you might give to somebody as they start the progress? I mean, we've already given some things about trust and aligning with leadership. What are some other practical things that you might say?
Okay. First thing, pray.
There we go.
Second
Amen.
thing, deep breathing. Know that this is going to be a journey. And if anybody tells you it needs to be done fast, you need to respond with sound counsel that this is going to take time.
Yeah.
Number 3, you need to develop a strategic approach to improving your website. Look at your analytics. What is working? What's not working? Review your goals, balance it against customer needs. How do you find out what customer needs? Set a focus group. That is a methodical process to really understand the customer journey. Number 5, engage a third partner if your budget can afford it. Subtitle: make your budget afford it. You want someone that has a proven and current track record of making websites better. Number 6, look at who is doing it well and why they're doing it well. Look at the organizations and within the higher education industry that are celebrating websites. They have annual awards. Look at who's winning. Study those websites. Number 7, engage bright minds who have a track record of doing this well. That means your peers. What have they learned that they've already shared in the market space, in social media, in their thought leadership, in LinkedIn? People are talking out loud about the pain points of website redesign. Go to the conferences, go to that workshop where they're talking about it, because this does not have to be as hard for you. There are people who have learned it before you. Talk to your team. Most universities and colleges don't have enough people managing their websites. It's always underfunded, always understaffed, and you need to support your web developer best you can, because it is heavy lifting to do this. But talk to the people that are doing this so that you can understand what their pain points are, because they're living this and imagining this thing every day. They have their own thoughts too. And then you build a cross-departmental, across the university, college, a redesign team so that you get cross buy-in, so that it doesn't feel like it's just faculty-driven or staff-driven or IT-driven. You need the family to come together to realize we are all in this together, to borrow from Fannie Lou Hamer. You need to build a team, because your team is going to help evangelize and help move the process along, because they're going to be doing it within their departments. There's too many silos in higher ed, which is a whole nother conversation, but this does not have to be a silo. And then number 10, hire a firm. Don't try to do this work yourself. You need help to do it. You need strategy and you need extra hands. I even hired extra hands to work with our content, because I knew that we only had the summer to get the faculty content together. So I assigned somebody with the task of taking that content and working with it and then sharing it with said faculty member, so they didn't have to do the work. in isolation, that they had a partner to shepherd the project along. That is the only way we were able to achieve the goal within the timeline that I was giving.
Yeah, it's a heavy lift. And I think that
successful redesign starts with strategy and support from leadership.
Yeah. And I would also say too, you've got to keep in mind that it's part science, it's part art. The data is extremely important, and don't ever think that you can do something without data. But at the same time, you have to realize that when somebody's looking at a website, it needs to not be transactional, because too many websites are transactional. It needs to generate emotion. They need to say, man, I can see myself there. Wow, you need to inspire. And those designs and the way that you lay out and the way that you take them through the journey need to do that. And you've got the data to support that. You've got the science to support that. That's sociology, it's psychology, it's psychographics, it's demographics. But you cannot just turn this over and say, oh, it's just a tool to disseminate our catalog information. It's got to be more than that.
I've got to make a connection through your website. I've got to see the various ways that I can study at this university. I've got to see what the student experience is. And we were able to do that even better with our redesign through our front door. Right now, if you look at our website, you'll see what happened in move-in day. You'll see our university convocation. So we're selling, we're marketing, we're messaging the beginning of the journey, because that's where we are in the semester. Yeah. And a few months, you'll see something else, because we'll be at another place. And then university higher education recruitment marketing is really about the conversation. It's not marry me on the first date.
Exactly.
Hi, I like to learn more about you. And so
a lot of wooing going on.
Yeah, you're doing a constant conversation. And if you have a good experience, then you go back, and then you go back, and you go back. Yeah. And then maybe it becomes an engagement. It becomes, signing up for a certificate class, or it comes, you forwarding the email so that your nephew or your niece considers the institution. But it starts because you had a good experience.
Yep. Great.
Kesha, would like to dig a little deeper with you on maybe some of the leadership lessons that you have learned, because a couple minutes ago, you alluded to praying and you alluded to deep breathing, which leads me to believe that this was not easy. So what lessons have you learned leading this transformation and change with the website?
Well, I said the first one was really that successful redesign starts with university leadership, and just being in conversation with your leadership, having honest conversations about what it's going to take, having courage in that conversation, letting data support those conversations. For me personally, it was that I can do hard things, because I've been managing websites for so long, I know how hard this is. Right. There was a part of me is like, do I really have to do this? I don't want to do this, but it was necessary. And then knowing that we as an institution can do hard things. Yes, it took 8 years, but we did it. And we did it because we worked together. We did it because we gave ourselves the space, grace, and time to do it the right way. I learned that websites have to evolve. User needs change. What we were 8 years ago is not what we are now. And you have to be able to, you have to be able to walk that road. I really want to celebrate my team, though, because what we do in university marketing and communications with, less than a dozen people, it's really phenomenal, because we had to do this together. Everybody on the team had a role, and I think the team even saw themselves elevate through the process, because we had to look back and be very proud of what we were able to do. I think we have to be honest about timelines, and I've learned to give myself a little more grace in those timelines. And you have to really understand what it really takes to do this work. So those are some of the things that I've learned along the way, is that it's possible, but you need to approach it through not doing the work yourself. Together everybody achieves more.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good way to end that. It's just the idea that you've got to have help, and this is not just like, writing an email template or doing a postcard. I mean, this is a big project, and it involves a lot of, you have to be savvy not only with understanding and keeping up on the best practices in higher ed marketing, but you also have to be savvy in understanding the nuances of relationships and the way the politics on campus work. And so going into that without that knowledge, without that expectation, without that understanding of, hey, day one when it goes live, you're going to get a lot of calls. And
Yes.
what are you going to say? How did you prep everybody before it went live? How did you spend the 4 weeks leading up to turning the site on live so that there weren't surprises? People like surprises on their birthday and Christmas. They don't like surprises when they're trying to go to a new website.
And that's where my leadership helped me specifically, because we came up with a strategy for an internal beta test.
Yeah.
So that cross-departmentally there weren't surprises, because they were poking the tires and looking at the
Right.
thing 4 to 2 weeks before launch. And then when we found that things weren't the way they needed to be, we moved the official launch. Because once you flip the switch, you can't pull it back down. So give yourself the space and grace and time to fix what needs to be fixed before you launch it. The public doesn't know what your launch date is. So set a realistic timeline, let your team look at it internally as part of the process, and then you can let the world in.
Yeah, I think that's wise counsel, because I think that too many times we create artificial deadlines for ourselves that we trip over when it's all said and done. And that's where, if you set those expectations early on that, hey, this isn't going to take a couple months, guys. This is a long-term investment. That gives you the ability to kind of adjust and to read the room and start thinking about, how am I going to do this? What's best for the institution? What's best for the family? So that when we do roll this out, we're not tripping over each other, and it even makes it worse than it was. I mean, there's some recent brands that have rolled out that nationally have gotten that backwards, where we rushed it out and we tripped over ourselves. And I just heard the other day, Cracker Barrel's going back to the old logo. And
They are. And because they had a reason why they launched it,
Yep.
and they have a reason why they're putting it back. And so, redemption's available to everybody.
Yep.
But you have to give yourself the space and grace to do that. But how you start matters. And I want to say to the people, one of the best tips is to don't look at people in your market.
Yeah.
Because you're not competing against Washington State necessarily if you're in the southeastern part of university. So look at people who are doing it well that are not your competition.
Yeah.
Because then you can have a conversation with them with you up here, and they not feel like they're in competition.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome.
We're going to win in higher education in this season through collaboration, through
That's right.
sharing,
That's
through podcast conversations, through thought leadership sharing, because we are all trying to thrive in very treacherous waters in more ways than one.
Yep. Great.
So, Kesha, what's next for USC Upstate's marketing and digital communications efforts?
So one of the things we're working on, we're always continuing to increase brand awareness and grow our recruitment in our backyard. That's still a main marketing goal. And we want to continue to leverage and elevate Upstate through the power of storytelling. I am trying to figure out how to get the people that are actually making the stories to share more of what they're doing at USC Upstate. So it is the looking at the first year student journey through news sharing through social media. It is exploring what are our opportunities to do internal storytelling about our strategic plan, which we released last year. It is looking at Dr. Harris's podcast. He has a podcast called Below the Line. Go look for it on Podbean, which also engages raising the profile of USC Upstate so that more people can engage with us through a variety of ways. And we're constantly trying to be more efficient. We're looking at AI. and how that's going to help us do our work better, because it's been weaved in through strategically through the entire fabric of the university to do that work of exploration.
Yeah.
But really, I'm a journalism grad. Storytelling is what we're focused on. We're just trying to find the best mechanisms to do it, to engage, to message, to market. So the work has not changed fundamentally.
Right.
The tools may have changed, and so we're consistently figuring out the best ways to do that same work.
That's great. How exciting.
Yes. Kesha, what would one final piece of advice be for marketing and enrollment leaders looking to turn their websites into real recruitment tools?
To engage the students that you just recruited, as early in their student journey as possible, to talk to them about how they got there and what marketing and communications messages and interactions may have helped them. Ask them for feedback on the messages that you're putting out now, and then invite them to share their story if they're at that point. They might not be at that point to sophomore year or junior year or wherever they are on the journey. But I think that the tip is to continue to engage the audiences directly, to listen and to learn, and to share that with your team.
Yeah.
So oftentimes we get so busy doing the work that we're not doing the sharing of what the very thing that we're marketing, what's the impact of it.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my tip.
Thank you. Everyone, we've been having this discussion with Kesha Boyce-Williams, Senior Associate Vice Chancellor for Strategic Communications and Marketing at USC Upstate. If someone would like to reach you, Kesha, what would be the best way for them to do so?
The place that I'm most active right now professionally is LinkedIn. Look for me on LinkedIn. KeshaBoyceWilliams.
Thank you. Again, it's been a wonderful conversation.
One more thing, Troy.
Yes.
So I want to close by returning to the thing that we've talked about the whole time, and that's the power of storytelling. And it directly relates to marketing, because it is the stories that often seal the deal with recruitment, the experiences, the educations, the mentoring experience that is shared through the higher education opportunity. So our chancellor, Dr. Benny L. Harris, he leverages the power of stories so beautifully when he speaks to our students on campus, and then when he speaks beyond the community. And we had a really great moment a couple of weeks ago when he hosted a girls mentoring group called Bloom Upstate. And he told a story about how his father told him he had to kill the snake when he was doing his gardening chores as a young boy growing up. And he went on to talk about snakes as an adversary, the snake of mental health, the snake of doubt, the snake of the uninvited, the snake of the unwanted obstacles, that whatever they may be. And these girls were so inspired by that story and being in the executive chancellor's room, and they went on to dialogue and identify their own snakes. And they were given the opportunity for that dialogue as a result of USC Upstate strategic plan to engage the community through these community partnerships. And it's led by Dr. Marilyn Israel, who's a community health professor at USC Upstate. These experiences are how universities recruit and retain the next generation of scholars. So if we're concerned about the 17-year-old, we need to be concerned about the 11-year-old, because you recruit the pipeline early through these university experiences in middle school and elementary school. And the power of storytelling is what these girls are going to take from this experience that was brought from being in a higher education institution.
That's great. Thank you.
Well,
yes and amen.
yes. Kesha, it is inspiring to hear how on fire you are for your campus and also for higher ed as a community. And we appreciate that final thought.
Thank
Bart, you're welcome. What is your final thought that you would like to share?
I think that Kesha has done such a great job kind of wrapping it up there with the idea of storytelling. I think the biggest thing I have seen in the 25, 30 years that I've been doing websites is that people want it to turn into just an online brochure. They want it to be transactional. They want it to be just information. And at the end of the day, especially in higher education, people buy on emotion and then they justify it with information. And so we've got to keep that in mind, that first impression that somebody comes to your website, we want to pull them in. We want them to hear the stories. We want them to be inspired. We want to grab their heart, and then we'll fill in everything with their head, with the information, the facts, the tuition, the payment plans, all the other things that they need to do. But we've got to figure out that our website is our first and foremost number one marketing tool. It is the first impression that you cannot get back. And so would love to have additional conversations about that. I'm sure Kesha would like to talk to you about that. I would love to talk to you about that. And so just thanks everybody for being a part of today's conversation. It's been so great.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you too. And then to our audience, thank you for tuning into Season 7 of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast. And if you found today's conversation helpful, hit that share button and text it to a colleague, please. And don't forget to join our growing LinkedIn community at The Higher Ed Marketer. The Higher Ed Marketer Podcast is powered by Caylor Solutions, your go-to partner for mission-fit marketing strategies, enrollment, and branding solutions in higher ed. We'll see you next week with another great conversation.
The Higher Ed Marketer Podcast is proud to be a part of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast Network. Discover even more conversations, resources, and tools to help you grow your institution at thehigheredmarketer.com, your go-to community for all things higher ed marketing and leadership.